One thing that I've learned about with working with seniors is that none of them really want to move. They all want to maintain their independence and stay in a place that feels familiar to them for as long as possible. Unfortunately, as people get older, the financial side of staying at home and retirement starts to become really difficult. And so seniors always seem to be looking for ways to sort of supplement their retirement and their income. Today, we're going to talk about reverse mortgages. And reverse mortgages is one way that seniors may be able to help sort of supplement their income and improve their retirement a little bit. Unfortunately, there are a lot of misconceptions and a lot of different things going on about reverse mortgages that people don't know about. And so today, hopefully, we're going to talk a little bit about these misconceptions and clear up some of those questions about reverse mortgages. And helping me with this conversation today is Gina LaRosa. Is that right? Did I get your last name correct, Gina?
You got it, Michael.
Appreciate it. Thank you. So Gina's with Mutual of Omaha Mortgage Company, and she's a specialist in reverse mortgages. So Gina, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So let's start with I guess the first question, Gina. And a lot of people may not know this, but what is reverse mortgages or a reverse mortgage, and how does it sort of differ from your typical mortgage that I would get from, let's say, the big bank down the street?
Well, the real technical name for it under FHA is HECM, Home Equity Conversion Mortgage. And I kind of joke about it, but we essentially take, I say doors and windows out. We take everything out of your home, we convert it to cash. That's the idea of it. Essentially, you don't pay taxes on it. It's your money. It's just converting your equity to cash. So the difference in a typical mortgage, you are making payments to the mortgage company. With a reverse mortgage, you are not making monthly payments. You still keep up with taxes and insurance, just like any mortgage. And that's the big difference. And it's insured through FHA. And that's part of the process with when you get your appraised value. No matter what happens to your home, the senior can stay in there. If it's upside down when they pass away, the heirs are covered. And it's just like a normal mortgage if they want to sell the house. If the value is still fine, they pay off the mortgage and keep the profit just like normal. So you as a real estate agent, you could help them sell the house and the family can keep the profit.
Wow, it sounds like there are a lot of great benefits in for a senior to get a reverse mortgage.
There sure are. And once they understand it, that's the biggest misconception. And I'm of the age where I heard the same thing. We thought the bank owned the house, just like a normal mortgage. You have a lien on your property, title still stays in your name.
All right, so I
Nothing
just want
changes
to
there.
apologize for interrupting you, but I want to clarify. So, if a senior does get a reverse mortgage, they still own the house. They don't turn it over to the bank.
Not at all. The only
Oh,
time that would ever happen, and they don't even turn it to the bank, say they sell their home, say the last person that passes away in the primary residence, and their mortgage balance is 100,000 and their home is only worth 50, FHA, the insurance kicks in and pays the lender at that time. So
oh,
that's how
wow.
that insurance works. If it's upside down, you owe more than your home is worth.
Okay. So, how does the senior receive their money then if they decide to go with a reverse mortgage? How do they get that money each month, or how do they tap into those funds?
Okay, there's always, we got to make sure there's, depending on if they have a mortgage, we have to pay that off because they no longer have a mortgage payment if they have one. And depending on how much money is left after that, because it's based on their age, the youngest person in the home, and the appraised value and the interest rate. And they say they have money at the end, or what most of them do, they can get it monthly. They can get some of it monthly and put some of it in a line of credit. They can get a lump sum at closing, or they can do a 10-year payment for the rest of their life. And they can change their mind at any time too.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like they could have increase their monthly income if
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to do that. How does this money they receive, how does that sort of impact their taxes and their tax status?
Not at all. It's their money. It's their cash from the equity in their home. And this is one way to take it all out. It's the only way, actually, it's one of the very few loan products that you can do that and take the equity out, convert it to cash.
Well, it sounds like the only loan product that I've heard of that's
Yeah.
possible to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like the biggest difference is instead of if instead of getting a mortgage from your big bank and then increasing your debt, and having a monthly payment, you're paying off debt. You're getting the equity that you have in your house, and you're using the equity you've accumulated over the years.
Correct.
Okay, that's
Correct.
very interesting. So I know you probably touched on this a minute ago. I think you did, but I just want to clarify again. What's probably the biggest misconception that families have about reverse mortgages?
Well, the big one was we went over a little bit. The bank takes your home, owns your home, and that's not true. And as far as the heirs, sometimes they're thinking, am I going to get stuck paying this? Or they get upset. They think they're not going to get their parents' home for um, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. When they pass away, when they get the home, the kids like want to divide up the money. So when we show them this, I always try to get them on the phone because they do not get all of the money. If their home's worth 400, depending on their age, they may get 150 or 200. So I want them to know that as a realtor, we are using in the equation a 4% appreciation value. So one of the things that the heirs, I let them know, let's look here at the mom and dad's reverse mortgage, and they pass away, and they look at the mortgage, what it is, say it's 200,000, and I show that to the kids and say, well, the home's worth 400. You can put the house up for sale unless you want to buy it, and you keep the 200,000. But also let the kids know mom and dad got to live off that money, so you want to help them grow old in their home. But if the exact opposite happens, that the home is only, they owe 200, but the home's only worth 200, FHA kicks in, and that's when that insurance comes into play. So the heirs are protected and the parents get to stay in their home until they pass away with no monthly mortgage payment.
Well, it sounds like a pretty good deal for the heirs then. Based upon your experience, how do they typically react when you give them all that information? Explain it to
Once
them.
they understand it, they're fine. And some of them just say, I want my mom and dad to be happy. I want them to be able to stay in their home. And most of them are living on a fixed income. So debt to income ratio is tough. They don't have to look at it like that. And then the other ones who are like skeptical, once they understand that, I always tell them, we have an amortization schedule. We'll send them and look at the value of the home, look at the balance of the mortgage, and let's see how this looks in 5, 10 years, depending on what happened. I mean, we all know what happened in 2008, but typically real estate appreciates. So
Right.
they're happy after that once they understand.
Wow. Okay. So it sounds like though you go through an appraisal process. You'll have someone come out, look at the value of the home, and then sort of run the numbers and figure out exactly how much equity they have in the property.
Right. And how much they owe. And we go through the whole, sometimes it doesn't work out. Depends. They might have a home worth 300,000, but they have a $225,000 mortgage and it makes it tough. So that it depends on each scenario.
Well, how does the condition of the home sort of impact, obtaining or not obtaining a reverse mortgage?
The only thing that happens is they'll look at recent comps, same thing as in a realtor, that. The one thing that they do want to make sure if it's safe. So their seniors planning on staying in their home, no broken railings, no steps, no outside broken railings, that the electricity works, the roof is not one of them, but that they want it to be safe. So that's the main thing they look
Right.
at. Now, if for some reason they get out there and the appraiser says, oh, we need to do this, we need to do that, in the process, we can get those fixed and they'll still close on the loan after they're fixed.
So how do you guys get them fixed? How does that work?
We usually find somebody to help them. Sometimes they'll say, I'll find a contractor, oh, my neighbor, whatever it is. And then the appraisal, we give them time to go fix it and they'll go take a new picture and send it back to us and clear that condition of whatever may be wrong with
Okay.
the home.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's a pretty simple process then. You really try to work with your potential clients to get
Oh,
them the reverse mortgage.
yeah. The only time I've never really had to turn anyone down because I usually do a process. I try to see what the value is their home. I reach out to a realtor like you and say, what do you think this would sell? And obviously we can't see the inside of the house, so we get an idea. I try to be conservative. And then as far as that helps with the value. And once it gets into our processing part of it, everybody works with you. And I started to say, I got one guy that showed up on title. He had a huge lien from IRS. And that was the only time that I couldn't do one that we didn't know was going to show up, or I didn't know was going to show up.
Right.
So other
S-
than that, if I get them, we work through it. And if I can do it, I let them know.
Okay. So what sort of caused that deal not to go through? What prevented you from being able to
Be-
close that particular deal?
because he needed to pay off a $200,000 IRS lien before we can close.
And it probably
And
took
that
up
was,
most
yeah.
probably took their most probably took up most of his equity, I guess, at that
Yeah,
point in time.
there was not enough. I mean, eventually we could have probably done it, but that was just it. And that was something that I did not know. Because most of the time I don't put people through all of that. I'll just say, well, maybe take a look at it later down the road. And here's another thing too, not to make sure there's, because you know, seniors, you work in that world, you're a senior real estate expert, and they no, they don't trust anyone.
Right.
And they're always getting scammed. Oh my gosh, I lose my train of thought.
It's okay.
No
Take
matter
it.
what happens, say they sign all the papers and their family shows up with them, they're closing. They have a 3-day right of rescission if they just change their mind, simply changing their mind. So no matter what they do, they are protected to the very end.
Okay. Well, that's good. So I didn't realize there was a period where they could back out or not go forward. That's good. Yeah, speaking of scams and seniors and scams, when I was researching this a little bit and trying to familiarize myself about the reverse mortgages, I learned that back in the day, we're talking like maybe the 70s or 80s, there was sort of a bad reputation of reverse mortgages. How has that changed over the years? And that's sort of gone away, I guess.
So what happened was, and I found it because I wasn't in it, but I know what happened. So you literally could turn 62 and get a reverse mortgage. They would give you about 80% of the appraised value. And people, they blamed it on the reverse mortgage. But what happened was they didn't have to make a payment, but they also quit paying their taxes and insurance.
Okay.
And that caused them to blame the reverse mortgage. All it happened, however many it happened, there you go. It started the trend of they own your house. And every time I talk to the senior group, that's I'll ask them, what is the number one thing? And they'll raise their hand. Well, you guys are going to take my home. So then FHA stepped in. I think it was 2017. And now you have to go through a financial assessment and counseling, reverse mortgage counseling. So you understand that we're not going to take your home and you still have to pay your taxes and insurance. And that was another thing they put in for protection. And that's over the phone. Most states you do
Okay.
it over the phone. And if I've done my job, typically there's not a lot of questions, but they still have to make sure you understand the process and how it
Okay.
works.
Sounds like they made it more of a formal process and a little bit more, I guess, oversight by regulators and the government.
Exactly, exactly. Because I mean, you hear it. I mean, I hear it all the time still. I mean, my mom said, "Don't you ever get one of those?" And once I once I understood it, now that I could change my mind, but I believed it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was sort of thinking back about it, and I remember seeing like Tom Selleck and I can't remember Fred Dalton or
Fred
Fred Thompson.
Fred
Uh,
Thompson.
yeah, giving the commercials and talking about reverse mortgages. Um, I wasn't aware about the reverse mortgage counseling. What is that like? How does that work?
That is, you schedule that reverse mortgage counseling. It's about a half hour to 45 minutes, and they go, their third party, make sure they talk about some of the things, how you will get your money, talk about that you're insured if you're upside down. You still own the home, the 3-day right of rescission. So
Okay.
most of the time, and they have to do that before we can send the loan into intake, essentially to start the process to make sure they understand. And that they're very serious about that. But it's over the phone. I always tell them, grab your favorite beverage, put your phone on speaker, and let the counselor go through his questions because he has to
Right.
do his part.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of education is done up front to give your potential client as much knowledge as possible.
Yeah, just to make them feel secure. And they do take some time. I tell them, let's get your family on the phone if we need to, your financial planner, whoever you want, and they can even listen on the counseling call if they want to.
Right. Well, that's good. Yeah,
Mhm.
so it sounds like the whole family needs to get involved in this process or this decision to make sure
If
it's the right thing.
if they want, Michael, sometimes they don't want their kids to know. So
Right.
I just have, it's their home. They get to do what they want.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. Makes
Mhm.
sense. So before the interview, my wife asked me this morning what I was going to be, what I was doing today, and I told her I was doing a reverse mortgage interview, and she thought it was for us, right? Because we're getting up there. I'm like, no, honey, it's not for us. And that made me sort of think about, what's sort of the age requirements, or what are the requirements for someone to qualify, other than having equity in their house for to be a potential client for you as a reverse mortgage.
You have to be start age 62.
Okay.
In some of the states, we have proprietary, they're 60, some of them are 55, but overall for the HECM FHA, it's 62.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's good. I didn't realize that. So we're not quite there yet. We're getting there, but not quite. Um, Now, I know we talked about this a minute ago. You touched on it, but I just want to ask a question again. How does a reverse mortgage sort of help the senior stay at home?
So the whole idea is if they pay off their mortgage, remember they are most, I think everyone I've done, they're on a fixed income.
Right.
And some of them, I also want to say the majority of them have had mortgage payments too. So there you go. You pay off the mortgage and they no longer have the monthly principal and interest payment. They pay their taxes and insurance. We make sure, but that's the whole idea is they're able to stay in their home and they don't have to sell it because sometimes when they're on say they got the mortgage 20 years ago and they're now retired at 65 years old and they still have that mortgage payment, they have to keep working even though, and they're thinking, okay, what do I got to do? I got to sell my house. So now it's called stay in your home
Right.
because we pay off their mortgage. That's income that they have, and they pay their taxes and insurance and whatever their utilities and buy their food, their normal things.
Okay. You mentioned a couple of times about paying the taxes and insurance. What's so important about paying the taxes and insurance for the senior to
Well, and
do?
the before FHA stepped in and made sure that so they don't take their home, even if you had zero mortgage, no reverse mortgage, no mortgage at all, if you do not pay your property taxes, they'll start the foreclosure process.
Right.
A
Okay.
lot of times you don't have to worry about the insurance typically with a make mortgage that is paid off, but when you get a reverse mortgage, you do have to have the insurance because you now have a lien on your house. So you
Okay.
do have to pay on a reverse, but on a typical mortgage and it's paid off, they don't have to have
Yeah.
insurance if they don't want.
So it sounds like you're just trying to protect your asset, I guess, right?
Right.
Essentially.
And let them stay in their home with no worries.
That's fair. It sounds like a fair trade-off.
Yeah.
I
Pay your,
mean,
hey, you'd have to do it anyway, right? If you're in the
a-
house.
absolutely right, and I imagine that does significantly decrease their debt or their monthly expenses just for the property taxes and insurance. I mean, that's not that much, I would think so, or considerably less than having to pay the
Yes.
mortgage and all three. So that's good.
Hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about family dynamics. You touched on that a minute ago. So it sounds like once the kids, if the kids get involved and once they understand everything, it's a pretty easy process. I mean, what kind of challenges have you seen with the family in the family dynamics of reverse mortgages?
Once it's decided and I just do the normal process, then that's all the upfront, having them get them on the counseling call. I always say, call me. I'm apprehensive. My son said this, my daughter said this, my neighbor said this. I said, let me talk to them and let's just explain it because that's just like anything. I don't know everything what you do and you'll explain it. I have my own misconceptions about things and that is it. Then once I have everybody and they're ready to go ahead, it's just the normal, typical reverse mortgage process.
Okay, that's easy. That sounds pretty straightforward then.
Hmm.
That's
It's
good.
very minimal documentation too. Typically, we need if I don't even need any of their portfolio or any of their investments, most of the time I just get their social security letter that they get each month or driver's license and a social security card and their insurance information. There's not a lot of like a typical mortgage. So it's minimal information.
Well, that's good. Yeah, because doing typical mortgages, man, they ask for sounds like almost a blood sample and
And I'm just gonna say,
firstborn, and they want everything. And then of course we have to warn our clients about, hey, don't go buy a car or
right.
any kind of furniture before you move to the house. That'll screw everything up. So it's good to hear that it's a very simple process that a senior
Hmm.
can continue doing what they're doing, living their life without having to worry about having to cut expenses or whatever just to get the mortgage. That's good.
Exactly. Yeah, we clear it all up so they know, and look at budgets, whatever they want to do. Some people know have a family member that helps them with things too. So it's everything's cleared up before we submit the file.
Well, that's good. Now, again, as I was sort of researching the reverse mortgages and trying to update my or familiarize myself a little bit about the process, one thing I came across was that you could use a reverse mortgage to buy a home. Like a senior could actually use this type of product to buy a new home that sort of maybe a better fit their lifestyle. So instead of living in a two-story home with steps and not being able to access the upstairs, they could go to a single level home in a community somewhere. So how does that work?
So typically here's the way it works best. So you know, as a realtor, you have people in our area, we have people moving from the Northeast. They sell their home and they have whatever, $600,000 cash, and they come to North Carolina and they want to buy a home. We kind of try to help them versus paying cash for a $600,000 home to take a look at a senior 55 plus community. We always get with a realtor like yourself, and sometimes, actually most of the time, they can get a reverse mortgage with it. It's usually a 35 to 50% down payment though, Michael. So think about that. That's a big down
Wow.
payment, but that's because they've sold their home and they have the money. So I have worked it out with people, and sometimes what I'll do is they say they have 200,000 and I'll go backwards and I'll say, okay, what can we buy with 200,000 down payment and say 100,000 in the reverse mortgage? So instead of being able to only buy a $200,000 home, they can buy a $300,000 home.
Okay.
So that's how that works. So we do the same thing, pre-approval letter, take a look at, um, yeah, just take a look at everything. Most of the time, if they, even if they didn't sell their house, say you have a senior and they're in a home right now and they say, Michael, I want to sell my house. I want to sell my house and look for a one story. And then I would be talking to you and them and say, okay, once we pay off your mortgage of your house, here's what we have. And then I help them, both of you, help them go find a house that meets how much they're going to need down payment from the sale of their house and how much of it will be in the reverse mortgage with no monthly payment.
Okay. So I sort of missed this again on the down payment. How much was that down payment?
It could be from 35 to 50% based on their age. So
Wow.
that's why, but it has worked out. I always use the analogy of the people moving from California and the Northeast because they sell their home and they have a lot of money. Because
Right.
we talk to them too. Financial planners will say, let's keep some of that money. You never know. What if this? What if that? And put your down payment and put the rest of it in the reverse mortgage. But that's why it's based on the same way if you're in your home for a reverse mortgage, but it
Mhm.
also are the same qualifications, your age, the appraised value, estimated appraised value of the home you may purchase, and the interest rate. So it can
Okay.
be, I mean, if you have a $400,000 home, you may be bringing 200,000 to the table because
Oh, wow.
you've sold your home, but it's based on if they're 80 years old, maybe they only need 100.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like there's a little bit more math and a little bit more
Yeah.
analysis that's required in order to make sure that can be done. Little bit trickier.
And
But
another thing too, as a realtor, this is something to think about when I've talked to realtors. Say you have have a home and they want to do reverse mortgage. Okay, that's not a benefit to you. That's a benefit that would help the senior have their reverse mortgage, their loan paid off. But say they have $200,000 and after they've paid off their mortgage,
right.
people have asked the realtor, hey, help me buy an investment home, help me buy a home by the lake, help me get a mountain home. So that's another way that it helps realtors, that they
Okay.
don't even realize when they're talking to a senior client that they can help them buy something else having nothing to do with me.
That's good.
Hmm.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. And all the training that I've taken over the years, I've never heard about that. So that's
Hmm.
interesting. I never heard they could use this product in order to help buy an investment property or
They
some
can
other
do whatever
income.
they want with it. I have a guy who buys, he's his own bank. He flips properties. He had his whatever his money and
Right.
he's his own bank and he can do what he wants.
Wow, that's interesting. Again, that's
Hmm.
sort of a hidden value there. Didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about what happens after the senior passes away. Oh, sorry about that. Didn't mean to bump the microphone. Um, so I do a lot of stuff with people in probate, and occasionally I'll hear people talk about there's a reverse mortgage that has to be paid off. So once the senior passes away, what's sort of the process or what happens when they pass away, I guess is the question.
So the mortgage company, every time these loans are packaged up, the FHA, Social Security, everybody knows that this home, these people have passed away. More than likely, the family members, we have an alternative contact who to contact when this happens, and share, say my mom or dad passed away, there's no one left. We are going to go through, it's going to take us some time to figure out what we want to do. Do they have to go through probate? Do the kids want to buy the house? But it is a mortgage. So sometimes they'll get a phone call saying, oh, you got to pay this mortgage off.
Right.
The kids or the heirs have to just stay in contact with the mortgage company just so they know what's going on, because sometimes it takes longer. If it's 6 months, 12 months, a year, and then we're 18 months and we still don't have it settled,
Right.
stay in touch, stay in touch. So, and it's mostly, it ends up being on the kids to do that. And you get the bank involved. And if there's equity in that house, you don't want to get the bank involved. You don't want to give the
Right.
house to Mutual of Omaha.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Mutual Omaha probably doesn't want the house either. They're not in the home sales
Right.
business.
They're not realtors who
They're
sell the
yeah,
house.
absolutely. Yeah, so it sounds like there is a time limit, there is some kind of time frame,
Hmm.
but as long as you stay in communication with the bank, they're willing to work with you.
Oh,
They
yeah.
understand there may be longer.
Yeah, there's a servicing company,
Hmm.
and they'll stay in touch with you. You can call them. We give them all the information. I always do when I'm part of the process is to let the seniors know, please either keep my card, Mutual of Omaha's, with your paperwork. So
Right.
your kids know. If you write your will, write it in there so they know what to do. Because the kids panic. I get phone calls and oh my gosh, my mom and dad have a reverse mortgage and the bank's calling and saying we owe this. And then
Oh, wow.
we have to let them relax. But like I was telling you, not all parents want their kids to know. So, but we do have an
Well,
alternative contact that,
yeah. So I was going to ask you, why do you think some parents don't tell their kids about it, keep their kids in the loop?
because they still think the same thing that you and I thought years ago, that the bank owns the home, that we couldn't manage our debt. And that's not the case.
Yeah.
It just helps them live better. I mean, prices are going up with everything, and they've lived their life and they want to retire and be able to go to dinner or travel if they want to go visit their grandkids to have some extra money. So a lot of times it is just a misconception thing. It
Wow.
really is.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, but it sounds like there's a process of when the senior passes that the heirs can either keep the house or they can sell it or they can convert the house into cash somehow and get the estate to move
Well,
forward.
just like a normal, they would have, say they want to buy it. If they're not 62, they just get, you help them and they buy it. They get a mortgage. They just get their own mortgage.
What happens if the house is in a trust? What if the senior decides they want to put the house into a trust and they have a reverse mortgage? Is that possible?
Yep, absolutely. We just get the trust documents up front.
Okay. And I
And
guess how does that make the transition process a little easier for the
nothing. It doesn't
is it
change anything. The
oh,
attorneys take a look at the trust throughout. It's one of the documents in there with their social security card and everything else, and they just review it, make sure it's revocable and everything lines up, and it's just part of the process.
yeah. Since it's in a trust, it doesn't go through probate, then it'll make the sell of the house a lot faster, expedite a little
Right.
bit. That's
Hmm.
good. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not
Well,
an attorney. Those are the things, it's always, we tell
yeah,
people, you talk to them, but that always helps when they have their trust is
that's good.
give it to us up front.
And I'm sure you could probably point someone in the right direction if they needed a elder law attorney or someone to help discuss that with them.
Just like you and I, when we work with our seniors, right? We
Absolutely.
help them in any way we can, even if it's helping them pack their house or finding a doctor.
Absolutely. You got to be able to go above and beyond.
Right.
Sometimes they need the help. Well, so thank you so much for sitting down with me. That's sort of all the questions that I have. Is there something that I should I ask you that I didn't ask you that you think is important to add to our conversation?
For somebody who hasn't done one, you did a fantastic job. I would hire you.
Well, I appreciate it. But yeah, that really sort of think Chat GTP for that, right? So, without AI, I don't know if I could have come up with the questions or not. Um, but again, thank you so much for joining me. If someone wanted to reach out to you and talk to you about a reverse mortgage or find out more about it, how's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
They can call my cell at 704-778-0728, and I would give them my email. glarosa@mutualmortgage.com. But they can find me anywhere. Gina LaRosa. I'm local, but I'm licensed in other states, but it's pretty simple.
Okay. Well, what states are you licensed in? That way this is going on the internet, so maybe somebody in another state will reach out to you.
North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Pennsylvania, and California.
All right, there you go. Maybe we'll get somebody in California moving out here.
Yeah.
All right, so that's pretty much all I've got.
Okay. Thank
Anything
you so
else?
much for having me and allowing me to speak about it and get rid of some of those misconceptions and
All right.
helps them too. They don't know. And they have most people, I think it's like the number is $13 trillion of equity in people over 65,
Wow.
Michael. And they are the biggest demographic also buying homes, not so much the younger generation. So they have that equity and they don't even know they can use it.
Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned that because I've got a house listed right now. It's a one story, little two bedroom, two bath. And we're doing all the Facebook marketing and all that. And the biggest demographic that's looking at my Facebook ads are the 65 plus for that little
Yep.
house. I mean, it's like 250,000 is the list price. It's affordable, cute little house in good shape. And I was really surprised that the 65 plus was the dominant demographic for that house because
Yep.
we were trying to target the first time home buyer, the new families, the newly married couples, that kind of thing. Totally missed that market, but the 65
Yep.
plus seem to love it. So
The
you're right.
NAR statistics, National Association of Realtor statistics are amazing. They're the buyers and sellers right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Gina, thank
All
you so
right.
much for your
You're
time and I
so
appreciate
welcome.
it. You take
All
care.
right. Bye-bye.